Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. I have the coffee going. We got the green and loving it going this morning. Again, Trevor, what's up, man? What do you have over there?
Oh, my normal boring water.
So wait, I mean, you're obviously early up a lot earlier than we go air. I basically get up pretty close to like 45 minutes or so before we go on air over here. So do you do coffee at all right before, and it's
No,
over
I'm
by the
not.
time the show starts, or what?
No, I'm not a coffee guy. If anything, it's usually going to be a tea. If anything, and that's one of those things where it's if I don't have a million things to do in the morning, I'll I'll pop a kettle on. But usually, it's just too much work. I know that sounds like first world problems, but I just
Yeah, so
don't.
you're the kind of guy. That's why we have the parentheses for or tea. I used to. I mean, you go back home and you realize, like in Turkey, like how much tea is being consumed at any given point because it feels like it's nonstop throughout the day, and it's like freaking like dark, like black tea and stuff too. Um, but yeah, I've been Americanized now, so I do the morning coffee. So good day to wake up to after yesterday.
Yes, yes.
I know, but here's the thing, you and I, we were not happy when the lineup came out, so I'm not gonna like change that take based on like how the result panned out. I guess we can say it was a risk and we got the reward. I thought it was too much of a risk and not worth the reward in the first place. First of all, do you think we got the reward?
But and obviously going in and handing Napoli their first loss in anything since April is important to kind of have that confidence boost from there. But the caveat with it for me is if this weekend we go and we play badly against Spurs, I don't want to hear a single fucking peep about tired legs or injuries or anything. I don't want to hear a single peep about it because you had your chance to do a just complete second team for this game, and no one would have batted an eye, and you would have given yourself a full strength squad for this weekend. And yes, and this isn't me going, oh, well, looking back, we are going to be like this. The entire end of that game, I was screaming for them to go for four. I'm not going to sit here and go that I wasn't happy during the game. It's one of those things where the moment takes over. But if you're trying to look at it pragmatically and going, okay, this is something that's been kind of a bugaboo for this team, and it's a talking point for Klopp in almost every single one of his press conferences. He's going, well, oh, we just got all these injuries we have, and all these guys have tired legs, and they're just playing so many minutes. You can control that. You pick the players that go on the field. You can change at least one half of your biggest problem, and you choose not to. So that just needs to go out the window on that front. I'm
And
happy for the
honestly, it
win.
might help
Yeah.
your other problem, perhaps avoid some of these injuries by
Yes.
piling on the minutes for people. So it might help them both. I mean, obviously, some of them are freak injuries, but a lot of these muscle
Yeah.
injuries is due to tired legs. And yeah, I mean, when the lineup came up, I know like you wanted to see names you did not recognize, and
Yes.
you recognize every freaking name. And I know, like, say, neither one of us were happy. And actually, like in our Discord channel, which if you're not on, you really should be on there as a Liverpool fan because there's always like good chatter and stuff like that. If nothing
Yeah.
else, you can see Bickler's like Eeyore impression throughout the game and, kind of like laugh at that. But, I thought yeah, it was not worth the risk. The reward was not worth the risk because we knew pretty much that we were not going to beat them by four. And I think it was a team that we played an Napoli team that perhaps was not. I mean, do you think they gave it all? I mean, obviously they gave it all in terms of like on the field, but you think like in the back of their head, they're like, this is kind of a done deal. Let's get out of here without anything major, as opposed to this is a game we have to win kind of an attitude.
You could definitely tell that after they didn't get a goal in like the first 20 minutes, they really turned like the caginess up. They were
Yeah.
like every single time, and Osimhen was a guy that we were bagging on that entire game. Every time somebody like looked at him the wrong way, he fell on the ground and sat there and held his face for like 10 minutes. And there was a couple times where I think only once he got hit in the head, and it was kind of like a clash between him and Virgil on that one play where they were both like going down at the same time, and he
Yes.
got called for a foul and got up. And I had never seen a guy protest that much and not get carded before, but that's neither here nor there. But and
What was the
then
mask for? Like, was that
he's
in
got to have
honor of
some.
Halloween? Because it didn't
He's
look
got to
like
have
it was
something
protecting
broken in his
anything.
face. I didn't have a full knowledge
Because
base
it
on that
wasn't
one.
the nose, like it was literally going over. It was like he was doing his Batman impression, and I was like, "What is the mask
He's been wearing it
protecting?
for
The
a while though, so
cheekbones?"
there has to be something. It's either he and it happens in the NBA all the time. Like Rip Hamilton wore it, and then like he didn't need it anymore, but he was so used to wearing it, and
Yeah, he's like, "This is
it
kind of
like brought him
cool."
that level of comfort. Maybe that's the case. I don't
Well,
know.
I guess it could be. Yeah, I mean, he had to wear it for something, and it kind of stuck. I mean, he does look like like a superhero wearing that thing. But
Oh
uh,
yeah,
so I mean, here's the thing. So, like you said, yeah, they did turn up the Cajuns, and they were okay with like getting the draw and getting out of Anfields.
yeah,
Just go back to business as usual because mission was accomplished in their mind, and they probably knew, like unless they really shit the bed, they're not going to like get destroyed.
yeah.
So do we take how much joy or pleasure do we take out of that? I mean, so you could look at the stats, and unfortunately, next to the stats is a list of people out, but just
Yeah.
focus on the left if you can. So, I mean, overall, it was a more dominant performance. And I think what I liked seeing mostly was how we played off the ball. I mean, sometimes you look at these numbers and they can be deceiving, shots on goal, shots on target, and stuff like that. I kind of liked how much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like for the press, it felt more direct, it felt more like focused and quicker than what we've been used to.
Yeah, and I think it was the way I was wording it when I was talking in the bar was like it wasn't pressing just for pressing sake. It was press with purpose. And there was guy and like I think direct is the one that is the word that I'd use for that as well because it was just this guy sees this guy and goes after that guy. And when it passes over, the guy in his quadrant goes after that guy. It wasn't just, oh, I have to press somebody, so I'm going to run halfway across the field and then leave this open, and then they break that way. It was kind of controlled direct pressing, and it kind of made Napoli have to do more with the ball than I think that back line is used to. They're used to just trying to like pump the ball up and let their creative players just work their magic with it. But I think we kind of took them out of that mode and made them have to, I don't know, be a bit more precise with what they were doing out of the back. And
And they
that,
were not able to.
no,
And I think that's, I mean, not a lot of teams are able to, especially if we apply the pressure properly, and we've had it in the past. So, which brings me to this next question. So, I don't know if you got a chance to kind of like, I just read the transcript. I didn't watch it, but I read the transcript this morning of like Klopp's post match comments and stuff like that. And one of the things he says without saying is, we kind of like go back to this 4-3-3 that we're more familiar with, we defend better with. I think it's more about that part goes back to the familiarity. I think everybody knows where to press, which angle to take, and all that kind of good stuff. But he talks about like Nunez coming off afterwards, and without saying, maybe it's me reading between the lines, but we do not defend as well when Nunez is out there.
and and that may be something that just comes with time. And there's all right.
Alan
I'm
is
so
waving as a good
I'm
excuse.
sorry for that, Alan. Yeah, you didn't need a doctor's note, but you're all right, buddy. The yeah, it's one of those things where it's it's a new thing for him, and I don't particularly know the ins and outs of Benfica's system where offense to defense, but it could be something where they may just it's a group now that's been doing it together for quite some time, and that the familiarity more than anything is something that makes things that could be difficult easier. That's not a a take out of left field or anything. That's
I'm glad you're the editor. Yeah.
yeah. There's that goes for pretty much a lot of life. Never mind pressing in a football match, but I think it's something that he's quick enough. He's got a good enough head for the game. If he can just stop slapping people, I think he'll be fine.
So that's one thing we were talking about with Mecca yesterday in the post match is I love his aggression, and Mecca seems to think it's kind of like part of what he is, how he is, and I don't know if that's gonna get toned down anytime soon. It's just the way he plays, kind of thing. I wish he kind of stayed out of that drama in some ways. But if you look back, you look at our front line, maybe did we need a bad dude up there? Because you look at the guys we have up there, Diaz kind of has changed it a little bit. Mane did have some feistiness in him, but Mo usually is a good dude. Bobby is like a freaking saint going around. So did we like need somebody who is going to piss off some defenders as well?
Maybe that was part of the thought process behind it. Of you had so many good guys that you kind of needed that goon, and not to say that Nunez is one of those guys that has no talent other than just being an antagonizer, but that it's and I don't know if it's a Uruguayan thing, but he has a lot of those Suarez instincts where it's you're never going to get flight from him. It's
Yeah.
always going to be fight, regardless of the situation. And that's you're hoping that it stays in moments like that. Okay, you slap a guy in the back of the head like he's your misbehaving nephew. That's yeah, that's great in the middle of the season against Southampton. When cards matter in the Champions League, and you could like be out for a very crucial game because you pick up stupid yellows. I think that's something that really needs to get reined in by Klopp and that entire staff as well as his teammates.
Yeah, Alan says he reminds him of Zlatan with his petulance. And honestly, that is a good analogy because I think it was on Netflix, there was a documentary about kind of like the early years of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And yeah, actually, that's a very good analogy because now that you mentioned, I didn't think of it before, but yeah, there's a lot of things in common there where, like you're saying, it's not just physicality and like just getting on your nerves. So you have a lot of skill to go with it. But at the same time, like you got to be able to control it. Some things Zlatan was not able to do, for example, when he was young. A lot of issues, a lot of reds and stuff like that. And obviously, he's already gotten one red. I really think hopefully he can kind of control it a bit more. You don't want to take it away from him because it's part of his game. He plays angry, and I mean, you can kind of tell when I was watching that game yesterday. When people are defending, as a defender, you can kind of like, see the body language, or I can almost get inside the brain of the defender as they're defending. It's just like, like doing it for so long is, when Mo is coming at people, they have that anticipation of what the hell is he going to do? Is he going to sort of like suddenly turn it on and sprint past me? Or is he going to cut? It takes a lot to be able to defend a guy like that. I almost feel like and see the same fear when they have Nunez coming at them with the ball because he has that speed burst that he can just freaking run past you too, but he can also cut in and he can kind of like unleash his shots. Unlike, I think Diaz is probably the closest. That's why it's going to be very interesting, and I'm like really would love to see that soon with Diaz, Nunez, and Mo up there because that gives you three guys who can shoot the ball from far and have a good shot after cutting in, and also have the pace. So you have to kind of cover the cuts back, and you have to cover them like sprinting to the byline too. So that makes it like really hard to defend.
Yeah, you kind of have to just pick your poison, and you have to really commit to something early, and then at that point it'd be up to our guys to make the right choice to counteract their choice. Because being able to have three guys that can just run by you for fun, and like you said, Diaz, and I think Diaz before he went out was getting to like peak Mo levels in from the other side of being able to cut in and just finding that one little gap and just kicking the shit out of the ball. And I think Nunez is a guy that may need a bit more volume with it. He's not as clinical with those cuts and kicks, and Mo has obviously had his issues with it this year. But I think that's something that in after the World Cup, I really feel bad for some of those teams that are going to have to face him well rested, because he's just too talented to not have these shots that he's getting over and over and over not go in. And I think they're going to come in bunches, and it's not going to be a good time.
With time, I think Nunez is going to be it's definitely not work rates that's stopping him from doing the pressing and like defending. I think it's just a matter of understanding the system, getting used to it, knowing who to press, which way to press, what angle to press, and stuff like that. I mean, people just think, when you're pressing, it's just like running towards the guy fast, but there's a lot more to it. Because if you're not all pressing at the same time, you might not as well press. You're just wearing yourself out. People out there are way too good to play around you if you are pressing by yourself or pressing at the wrong angle. And the way we play is, when we kind of implement that press and you don't do it well and the team comes out of it, you kind of set up your back line big time now, and usually your backs are pushed up and everything like that too, so you're really exposing your center backs and kind of asking a lot from them. So it's going to be interesting. I think his biggest disadvantage really for Nunez is coming the same as time as Haaland and having that constant comparison. I think as a young dude, mentally he would have a lot easier time if he came over last season or this season or something like that. And it doesn't help that obviously we're in kind of a rut and he's the one there. I think in a team where we were functioning properly in midfield and in the back line, I think he would get a lot more opportunities, a lot more shots, and a lot more goals too. But so a couple of things I want to ask you from yesterday. I know I was bugging Mecca with it in the post match as well. What did you think of like a few of the performances? First off, what did you think of Curtis?
It was a take it or leave it type of deal with him. It was one of those things where I understand running him out there because you'd already tried Fabio Carvalho in that spot, kind of, and it didn't really work very well. So if they were going to give rest to some players, he was kind of like the natural next choice up there. I don't think he played great. I don't think he played terrible. He's kind of at least with the sofa score ratings, like you get a 6.5 just for breathing. So I think a 6.5 for him is perfect.
Yeah, my boy Kim over there, who they got from Fenerbahce, which then Elmas came in too. I'm like, well, Fenerbahce has become the Southampton of freaking Napoli over there. But he was having actually a good game. But then I was watching it again last night, and I realized that the first goal is Kim not even jumping and like two guys over him. He's almost like, what is going on? These guys are going for the ball and everything. And then it's like Nunez and Van Dijk at the same time. In his defense, I guess he had two guys to cope at the same time. Alan says Curtis, I feel, is a lost cause, better in the championship. And in some ways, I agree. I think the fact is where he should normally play, he will never play on this team. Like his natural position or what his probably ideal position is, I think he'll ever play that position on this team. So I don't know how fair it is to kick the kid out on a left wing, which is not really his natural position, play him as a defensive midfielder, which is not his natural position, and then kind of judge him on that. But at the same time, I mean, if you have that quality, you got to show a couple of things where you say, man, if we can get him in the right spot, this kid is going to be something. I know that injury kind of set him back a little bit, and I feel like with Curtis, it is a lot of it is mental. I know, like on the ball, he does the fancy moves and stuff like that, so he looks like a dude that's very almost like cocky and overconfident. But I think you could kind of tell. I think we were talking about in the last game where like you can kind of see him thinking things over and over again instead of playing natural because he does not want to be the one to make the bad pass or turn the ball over and stuff. So he's almost like overthinking, and obviously when you overthink, a second late is too long of a second over here in this level of football. So, how about? I mean, obviously, Konate coming back there. I don't know if the yellow card automatically deducts points in SoFa score, but I actually thought he was the one that made a huge difference in that back line. He covers for Trent a lot better. And speaking of Trent, and I know people are going to be like, "Oh my God, let this go," but there's a situation there. I think it was sometime in the second half. You can kind of see and almost get baffled on how Trent defends because the guy is on the right wing, and I was like, "Oh," I saw the guy on the left wing, and I was like, "Oh shit, Trent is gonna let that guy go," like, or doesn't know that guy is there, and instead. I think it's almost like he knew he was there, but he runs towards the middle to cover an area and leaves the guy by himself. And that's when he got the shot off. And actually, like Allison did make a couple of big stops when the game was still tied. What do you make of that right side of the back line there?
Yeah, I think Kanate played really well. He was a steady hand in getting the ball forward in terms of he would like just run the ball forward. He kind of have that Matip energy a little bit where he had a couple shaky passes, so he's just like, "Fuck this! I'm not passing anymore. I'm just gonna dribble it forward." But it's not a bad thing. It's recognizing that you can't do one thing. You're either like shaky with it or and he's also on the side of the pitch where everybody was falling down every 15 seconds. So I get it. Maybe you want to just get the ball away from there. That's fine. I think he played well, but Trent and yeah, it's one of those things where you're really trying to figure out where his head's at, and the yellow card was stupid. I think it was a bit of a dick swing from the ref.
I
He's
was
like,
going to say,
oh
I see that done like 10 times a game. He just
yeah,
made it a
that
bit
that
too
was
obvious.
that was. But I it's one of those things where uh, afterwards, like he seemed absolutely deflated, and then he eventually got taken off for Ramsey, who we can talk about those guys at some point too. But yeah, I think he's a guy who's just defensively completely devoid of confidence, com- and he's not going forward enough and doing enough offensively to kind of offset those deficiencies. And it's really putting a lot of pressure on guys like Fabinho who are already
Yeah, don't need any more
gassed
of
out.
that.
And yeah, and it's just something where I don't know. I wish I had the magic talisman to fix him and kind of just get his head just free and clear. And I don't know who needs to go talk to him. I don't know if they need to like bring in some of the old heads and have them go just sit him down and be like, hey, let's just have a discussion. Where are you feeling like you're doing? Make it kind of like a semi-job interview. Like, what do you think you're doing well, and what do you think you're doing bad?
Where do you see
Because
yourself in 5 years?
yeah, because if you keep playing this way defensively, you're going to be seeing yourself playing for fucking Birmingham City, and yeah,
It's is he just not because I mean that is very, very basic defending. Like when we were watching the game, I think it was Rich. I mean, I said it, and Rich was like, yeah, basically, we might have said the same thing at the same time, even though, it was like, the situation was gone and everything. But to me, that is just basic defending. Check your shoulder, get the guy, cover the guy. Because by covering it, you're not going to cover an entire box by yourself. he's almost gambling in that scenario where the ball is going to be there. But when you're playing against a good team with skilled players, I mean, the dude saw and already knew that Trent was getting suckered in towards the ball and towards the middle of the box. So he just chips it over towards the back post, and Trent is totally out of the equation. And that's the kind of stuff that just like baffles me. And I'm like, maybe it fits in the system where his attacking actually works better as a right back, I feel, than as a midfielder. I think, he would not be, as everybody's like, oh, we should put him in midfield. I don't think he's as good going forward if we do put him in midfield. I think it's a totally different scenario. I mean, I know his passing is great, but sometimes it's different. I mean, as somebody who played defense, sometimes it's a lot easier to do that passing when you have the whole field in front of you and there's nobody behind you. So you have a lot more time. You can see the whole thing and the threats coming behind you. It's a whole different ball game to play midfield where there's traffic all over the freaking place and you have to play a lot faster as well. You don't see what you're going to, I mean, as a defender or right back, left back, whatever, you almost have like half a second to know even the ball before the ball comes to you because you're seeing everything as the ball comes to you. That's not usually the case with midfield. You got to be a lot faster. And I don't know if you'll be as good doing that, but it's without proper cover, it's always going to be an issue defensively. Alan's asking about Milner, which was a really odd ordeal. The funny thing is we talked about it in the morning coffee show yesterday. And then the dude, I mean, cracks his head pretty much open because it's bleeding. And then, goes out for approximately 10 seconds, comes right back in, probably should not have been coming back. We talked about this yesterday. This is the way, unfortunately, right now in football. But then when he came out, you would think they would catch something over the halftime, right? Like they had 50 minutes to be like, Milner, you don't look yourself, or Milner knowing that he's still woozy or whatever the case is. But then when he was coming out, it almost looked like he pulled something, the way he was walking with it. And then my initial impression, because I think, Megan is the one who brought up on the Discord channel that, Klopp was pointing to the head. I thought that was Klopp's way of buying time for Elliott to come in. So we were never 10v11. But the only thing I saw that Klopp said after the post-match was he didn't know. He saw Milner and he looked fine.
And that's
I know what that means.
Yeah, there was a lot to unpack from that whole thing. I genuinely don't know because and I'll be honest, I didn't see the initial thing because Paramount Plus, greatest streaming service in the world. Yep.
You just had
bad. So I kind of just saw the aftermath and I saw what you guys were talking about, like him pointing to the head, and you're going, okay. And I was trying to find clips of it, and yeah, there's not something where you couldn't tell if the limp was from him just trying to keep his equilibrium right, or if he had strained something and was just kind of soldiering out and trying to just be a man and not tell anybody that he was banged up. But that was a weird thing. At least they didn't let him run out to the hour mark and then just
Can you hang in there for another 10, 15?
Yeah,
just the way he came out, it looked like he pulled something. And my thing was, it's the beginning of the second half, didn't warm up right away, and then made a sprint and freaking pulled something. And I was like, oh, here we go. He's gone until after we got back from the World Cup kind of deal. And but it was odd. Let's hope. I mean, I don't know. It's odd to say let's hope it was concussion. But I mean, it very well could be just the way. I was like, man, we just talked about it this morning. A guy's head is literally bleeding there, and he trotted back onto the field 5 seconds afterwards. It just can't be right. And down the road, I think we're going to find out that we have a similar issue, maybe not to the extent of NFL or something like that, but we have a lot of similar issues where there's a lot of players that's coming back into game where they should not be. You mentioned it earlier. Let's touch up on that. The dudes that came in a bit too late for my liking, but it is what it is. These are guys that we probably expected or maybe wanted to see in the starting 11 initially, just to get some rest and stuff. But I mean, pretty good overall. You could kind of see the energy level go up, some youth and fresh legs, or some. But do you think they will be able to keep that up? And 5 minutes later, if they came in on the 60th, by 75th, that initial burst is gone, and now we're kind of boys playing against professionals, kind of an ordeal rest of the way.
Yeah, I liked what and granted, it's a very small sample size, even though there was 7 minutes of stoppage time due to Milner and the VAR check that would never end. But that I liked what I saw from Ramsey. He was a guy that was obviously more committed to defending than Trent was in 14 minutes, and Trent was in 87. Bajcetic was a kid that everybody had kind of liked from just seeing him in all these different levels that he's played on, and he kind of has that reputation that he can kind of be like Fabinho light in what he does. And Carvalho is probably the only guy that we really didn't need to see in that moment, but they got to give him minutes to somebody. And
yeah, it was more about, I mean, to me, I was like, I don't care who's going in. You got to get some rest to the guys on the field, even if it's like, like 10 minutes less running is 10 minutes less running, I guess. So they are, because that's something that Spurs could not afford to do in their
that
game.
Game was wild.
That game, that entire group was wild. I figured, tomorrow morning, we'll kind of like take a look at all the Champions League scores and like all the groups and kind of go over that. Quick programming note that there will be no podcast tomorrow night, which is why we spent kind of like too much time in the post match, and then there's kind of like recapping the game, since the boys are not going to be able to do it on Thursday night. But that leaves us on our way out over here, Trevor, as we get the second. Well, I'm getting the second cup of coffee. You're getting another glass of water or whatever the heck you're doing over there. But and then we'll be back tomorrow morning. Like I say, we'll recap the Champions League scores. Hopefully, we'll find out a bit more about Milner and what any other thing happened out of this game and what we will have for the weekend. And then, like I say, on Friday, we can kind of like take a look at the weekend and see where we're going to go from there. Spurs did, I mean, if anything, that was probably, I mean, we already knew this though, right? Like Spurs is going to have to go all in. They have no chance to rotate or whatever. They needed a result for sure. And it became even a tougher match than they probably anticipated. They lose Son, who could be for a while. It's sounding like the way he came out and the way he looked, like he knew there was something wrong. And Alan says, don't worry about me. Yeah, well, you take care of those issues there, Alan. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow morning as well. Have a great Wednesday, hump day, right? And then we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Take it easy.